Hi, Mark Rogers here with Talking Turning 65. It's always good to be able to go into that phase of retirement knowing you got your estate plan all buttoned up, buttoned down, and taken care of. We have a nice topic on deck here, real simple. What is a will and what is a trust in just a few minutes? And I got Marcella from eLegacyLaw with me here today. Thanks for jumping on, Marcella, on the panel here. Let's tell people, let's share with people, what is the high-level view in layman's terms difference between a will and a trust?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark, for having me be a part of the discussion. A will and a trust are really actually quite easy to understand once you understand that a will and a trust are both very similar legal documents. So think of them as your instruction manuals. They are going to say who's in charge of your estate when you pass away and who's getting what. What are we doing with your stuff? The difference between a will and a trust, and for you to be able to determine how you want your estate handled, is how they're implemented. So with a will, you can easily think of that as the legal document that will go through a probate in order to be used. Whereas with a trust, it is the estate plan that bypasses the need for a probate process. And to determine whether you need one or the other, you need to decide whether or not you have enough assets to trigger a probate. Now, the key with this is every single state is a little bit different. They all have their own dollar amounts that trigger a probate. But quite simply, if you own real estate, or if you're paying off your house and it still has a mortgage, but your name is on the deed, you will need to go through probate with a will. That's why when I meet with clients and they want to avoid probate and they own a home, I always recommend we take a look at the trust, because that is the only estate plan that they're going to be able to use to bypass a probate and to have things transferred to their family without a complicated court proceeding and without, more importantly, the additional cost of a probate. Right now, on average, a probate is costing families about $10,000 in additional attorney fees. And so knowing what type of plan you need can save you a lot of money and a lot of extra time and hassle for your family.
Yeah, so just to recap that, folks, is it looks like, you get that trust, you won't have that extra probate fee on the backside of things, which can get very, very costly and timely, because as we all know, when estates need to be settled, we want to get her done quick and not necessarily waiting on a probate court situation, right? So it's going to be cleaner with that trust. But again, trusts aren't for everybody, but it's right. Everybody's different.
When I meet with my clients, one of the first things that I ask them is, hey, do you own real estate, and how do you picture your estate being settled? And 9 times out of 10, they say, I just want this to be easy on my family. As soon as I hear the word easy, I think you need a trust. And just to break that down a little bit, if you have a will and you own real estate, or if you have more than $75,000 to $100,000, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, that will trigger a probate. And in order to use that will, you have to not only pay to set up the will, but then you actually have to pay for the probate in order to use the will, because it has to be validated by the court first. Whereas with a trust, yes, you do pay more to set it up. There is more front-end cost, but in the long run, when you use the trust, there's not a probate needed. Your family can settle your estate immediately, and there's not this 12 to 18 month waiting period that the probate has. And so in the long run, financially and time-wise, the trust costs about half of what using a will cost you, and the timeline is immediate. You're going to be able to settle your estate instead of that year to year and a half with a will going through a probate.
That's very interesting. I never thought about that, Marcella, is actually the time value of money, and the total expense paid on a trust is probably much less than the total expense paid to a will and the probate fee to follow. So
I also see a lot of families who have a will, and what ends up happening is the family wants to start following your instructions, wants to pay for your funeral, wants to start distributing things, and none of that can take place with a will until the court first validates the will and then gives you permission to be able to settle the estate. And so what ends up happening, the bank accounts, the funds are all frozen at death,
Yep.
and the family ends up fronting all of that cost for the funeral. And even to get the probate started, sometimes family doesn't even have access to your bank accounts any longer, so they end up having to front their own money for the probate. And if you have a mortgage or any other bills, they're paying to keep all of those assets going, just waiting for permission from the court to be able to sell them and liquidate and access money.
Well, this is great. Folks, you were able to see a calendar link down below. You'll be able to see a time to get on with Marcella and myself as we can chat about this. Again, the 30 minutes is always available to anyone to chat to find out what options do you have, where might be the right fit. And so with that, look forward to chatting with you. And like you said, saving the money and saving the stress when this all needs to happen. So we'll see you next time.